This is the Reviewing Network Live, a weekly stream of consciousness recording session where I sit back with you folks out there, talk about some of the big news stories from the past week, and some other things I found that might be of amusement to you out there. I think you might get a kick out of it. Now, these are more like audio podcasts and are much longer than my usual videos and are also, for the most part, unedited and will contain some foul language. So, if you're easily offended by that, I advise you to maybe step back a bit, maybe go somewhere else. But hey, if you're up to the challenge, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Thanks. And for the 153rd time, we are live from the Reviewing Network studios. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Reviewing Network Live, the first Reviewing Network Live for the month of August 2026. Summer is coming to a close, but it's getting hot at the box office, as you saw this weekend with the number one movie. We'll get to that in just a little bit here, but of course, this is the week before we get ready here for Steel City Con in my neck of the woods. We're getting ready for that coming up this weekend. So I was hoping that this would be one of those. Maybe this would be one of those weekends where a lot of stuff would come out, and maybe, next weekend will be kind of a slow news week. Once again, it didn't turn out that way. So that probably means that there wasn't a lot of gigantic stuff that came out for most of this week, except for the weekend. But that only means one thing. It's probably going to get super busy next weekend. There's probably going to be a big breaking story in Hollywood coming up in the next week I got to talk about. So that's going to suck for me by this time next week, especially since I'm going to be tired from getting everything cleaned up from the show and all that. And I like doing the show, but it takes a lot out of you when you do one of these conventions and have a table set up where you have stuff to put out to sell. If anyone out there has ever been in one of these type of conventions, or any convention altogether, you know how that is. I know the feeling you're going through here, that's going to be a fun thing if some big news breaks out over the next couple of days, which it probably will. And then next weekend is going to be D23, where all the big Disney stuff's going to come out then. So should be very, very busy times here in these neck of the woods. But so let's get right to it. Let's go ahead and forgo the opening monologue this week here. I didn't really have anything too significant to talk about this week for the opening monologue here. So let's just go ahead and get right to it here. We could try to speed through this as quickly as we can, which probably means I'll be here for over an hour still. But let's talk about the weekend box office, because right now the weekend box office is the biggest story in Hollywood right now. And it's for one specific movie where it took a lot of business from the box office in general. You think I'm kidding around here? I'm looking at the Box Office Mojo list here for this weekend, and there's a lot of movies that took some massive hits overall. I mean, Hadestown the Musical, which was the number 3 film last weekend, dropped 80% from last weekend. Not only that, but Evil Dead Burn, which has been out for a couple of weeks, dropped 81% from last weekend, and lost. But then again, when you lose 1,700 theaters because of the big new release in town, that's going to end up happening. But Evil Dead Bird still made a lot of money, so did Hadestown the Musical. Young Washington also lost a lot of people, 75%. Obsession, which had been the box office hit for a number of weeks now, dropped down to 70%, but then again, that's mostly because that movie's been out on DVD, on Blu-ray for the last couple of weeks. And even Disclosure Day dropped 73%, with that coming out on physical media later this month. And yet, Backrooms actually gained some momentum, 5.3% from last weekend, even though it lost over 467 theaters. So that's really something where you're only playing in 85 theaters, and yet you still brought in a gain from last weekend. That's actually pretty impressive for that movie in particular. But let's get to the top 5 itself. And really, the main focus is going to be the number 1 movie. And I think you know what it is by this point, but if you don't, I'd like to welcome you from that rock you've been under for the last couple of days, and hopefully nobody has spoiled the number 1 movie for you. But coming in at number 5, we have Moana, which was hanging around the number 2 spot for a couple of weeks without any big new contenders trying to knock it down. Still not a hit whatsoever, and even this weekend, it didn't really do a whole lot. It was just sticking around in there because there's literally nothing else coming out this week besides the number 1 film. $5.3 million, dropping 50% from last weekend, bringing its 4-week total to $114.8 million. It finally crossed its $250 million budget at $261 million worldwide, but that's not enough to make Disney excited about this movie's success overall. It's still a flop. It's still going to lose a lot of money for the mouse, so... But, hey, they'll live. They've got a couple of movies that playing right now that they'll be perfectly fine on that front. Number four this week, which actually moved up a spot to from number 5 last week, which I'm glad to see because I really do like Minions and Monsters a lot. $5.8 million, 40% drop-off. $168.3 million after 5 weeks. If you include the worldwide numbers, it's up to $450 million. So it wasn't the big hit the studio was hoping for, but it is gaining a lot of traction and is sticking around overall. So I'm glad to see that. It's probably going to hit $500 million worldwide before it's all said and done. And I hope that they do continue. I hope they continue to make the Minions movies at this point, because I think those movies are more enjoyable than the Despicable Me films are. But they're going to do another Despicable Me movie at some point, because people won't, because it's like Despicable Me is still a reliable draw at Universal overall. So, but another movie moving up a spot this week from 4 to 3, Toy Story 5, $6.3 million, dropping 38%. Its 7-week total now is $461.7 million, which at this point does put it past the original Toy Story 4 as the highest grossing film in the series. Already crossed the $1 billion mark, so yeah, no real surprises there overall. Currently the number 1 movie of the year, but that will certainly change probably by this time on Tuesday, considering what the number 1 movie has already done. But number 2 this week is The Odyssey, and you think that, okay, the number 1 movie is out there, The Odyssey is going to fall off, okay, so that's not really much of a shocker overall. But then again, it didn't have the big drop-off that I think a lot of people were expecting it to have with the big new number 1 movie coming out this week. $51 million after 3 weeks is still not bad for that movie. 43% drop-off, and brought in $395.5 million, closing in on $1 billion right now, $911 million worldwide. Massive hit for Christopher Nolan, massive hit for Universal. It actually put Universal at $4 billion globally year to date. It was the first studio to do that this year, largely in part due to The Odyssey coming out like that. But hey, great movie, and I'm glad to see that it's still sticking around in there. Christopher Nolan knows his audience and knows how people are going to stick around to come see these films. But that brings us, of course, to the number 1 movie of the week. And if you don't know by this point, then quite frankly, I don't know what else to tell you, man. But, yeah, Star Wars The Mandalorian and Grogu. All of a sudden, people just discovered this movie again, and it brought in over $350 million at the box. Okay, I can't even do that to you. Okay, you know what the number 1 movie is. Spider-Man Brand New Day. And yeah, this movie, we knew this movie was going to be big, but we didn't think it'd be Avengers big. Like, I'll tell you something. When I went to go see this movie on Saturday morning, Saturday mornings usually are not the busiest day for new release. It's for busiest part of the day for the theater going experience. Like, usually Saturday morning, the people are still getting up, they're still doing stuff beforehand, and then they go out and they go out and do other things, and then they'll go to the movies maybe later in the afternoon or the evening. But, yeah, this was about as packed as I've seen it since Avengers Endgame. I mean, that's how big it was. Like, I haven't seen a theater this packed in 7 years, and it makes sense to make the Avengers comparison because, yeah, this thing is on its way to potentially making some history. I mean, excuse me for a second, sorry about that. But, yeah, Spider-Man Brand New Day opened up to $355 million, just in America alone. The States alone, it brought in $355 million. Now, we haven't had a movie make that much money since Avengers Endgame, which Avengers Endgame's record is $357.1 million. And there's still a possibility, a slim possibility, that when the final numbers come out, Spider-Man Brand New Day could somehow surpass the Avengers. It's hard to think about that for a movie of this caliber. I mean, it's amazing when you think about the love of Spider-Man in this world, and how the last 2 movies have really made Spider-Man about as big of an event as a star-studded superhero crossover like the Avengers. This movie broke box office records on opening day, $169.3 million on its opening day, which is staggering enough on its own. And then it brings in another $100 million on Saturday, which is unheard of. Usually with movies like this, you'd see a little bit of front loading, but this thing has remained very steady. There's been a little bit of a drop off, but not as much as you would see with a traditional blockbuster like this. I mean, on Sunday it dropped 17% from its 40% from the 40% drop off on Saturday, from the drop off on Friday. So it brought in $84 million today, according to these estimates here. And thus you got $355 million domestically. But if you include the worldwide numbers, already on its way to $1 billion, $927 million worldwide. Within a couple of days, it'll be the #1 movie of the year, and probably one of the big record breakers of all time. I mean, this movie did incredible business overall. And really, you have to ask yourself the question of, how did it get to this point here? And really, you got to look at the way that Sony has been doing. Sony and Marvel did a great job of promoting this thing, and again, doing the same thing they did with No Way Home by, keeping a lot of the big secrets out of the trailers and overall out of the marketing. And you had to have people go see the movies to see this film, and the end results have spoken for themselves. I mean, it's a movie where, it's the type of movie that you don't get to see like this at all. I mean, this is unprecedented stuff here, and it's just incredible to see how this movie really just came around and just made it, and just brought a lot of people to the theaters, and so have people still talking about it to this very day. I mean, it's staggering numbers all across the board, man. I mean, this is incredible money here, right here. And like I said, there's definitely a possibility that this movie could make even more money and could break a record by the time we get the final numbers tomorrow. I mean, that's how important this weekend is in general here. And if I'm Disney right now, I'm really thinking to myself that there is no way that Avengers Doomsday is going to beat this. I mean, this is going to have to take Avengers Doomsday being the greatest movie ever highly acclaimed. Audiences love it all across the board. Like, it's going to have to take a lot for that movie to break the box office records of Brand New Day. Like, I don't think it's even going to happen at this point. And so now the question right now is with Spider-Man Brand New Day is, how far does it go? Does it actually have enough legs to potentially become the first domestic box office billion-dollar winner? I mean, we've had movies that have had close to that. Star Wars The Force Awakens was, of course, the top-grossing film of all time. And then you had Avengers Endgame not too far behind that. And Spider-Man No Way Home is at $800 million, I think it is. I think that one made over $800 million here in the States alone. And that was pretty close, too. I mean, the last movie made over almost $2 billion alone. That's impressive to think about. And it just goes to show that people still love this character, and they do still love what they're doing, what the MCU is doing with them, with Tom Holland in this role. And people are coming in droves to see this, and it's just incredible business overall. I mean, this thing already has made back its $225 million budget. So from this point forward, it's just all it's just all profit from this point going forward here. And again, if you were to tell somebody 30 years ago that the Spider-Man franchise would not only have one successful franchise in the 2000s, but then have a franchise that is in its fourth film and is about to break box office records, you would have thought they were crazy, because it's amazing how long it took them to actually get a Spider-Man movie off the ground. All the way back whenever they got the rights to, whenever they started putting it together, like in the 70s and all that. And, Canon Films, of course, had their hand at it for the 80s, but never got it going. James Cameron was going to do one over at Fox, but never went anywhere. And then Marvel sold the rights to Spider-Man over to Sony, the movie rights. And, of course, the rest is history, man. They've done a pretty good job with this franchise in general. Yeah, there's been some snags. Spider-Man 3, the Amazing Spider-Man movies, not for the performance of Andrew Garfield, just the movies themselves. And, of course, the non-Spider-Man universe films they've been trying to do so badly. But, I mean, think about it. 3 really good Spider-Man movies in the beginning from Sam Raimi, for the most part. Third one, not so much. And then 4 great Tom Holland movies in the MCU. And, of course, the Into the Spider-Verse movies alone. I mean, Sony has done a pretty good job keeping Spider-Man from making a lot of money for the studio and making quality films overall. Especially this year, where you see a lot of franchises with a lot of franchise fatigue going on, like we just had with Star Wars, like we have a little bit with the Despicable Me franchise, and a little bit with Superman right now, with Supergirl not doing very well. But Spider-Man has had a number of different movies coming out since the pandemic. I mean, the big ones, I mean, we've had 3 big ones. No Way Home, Across the Spider-Verse, and now this film. And I guess if you want to include the non-Spider-Man movies too, Morbius, the 2 Venom sequels, the Madam Web, Kraven the Hunter. I mean, there are so many films within the Spider-Man universe, and yet people still keep coming back to them because there is a demand out there, and people and the movies have done a very good job of keeping people wanting to come back for more and seeing what comes next overall. This movie shows that, you know, they could do a couple more of these movies with Tom Holland and the director Destin Daniel Cretton here, and people will still come back in droves to see this. And I mean, this is probably the most successful thing that the MCU is going right now. And you know, at this point, it's Kevin Feige. Give them what they want. Give Tom Holland and Destin Daniel Cretton what they want to keep coming back and doing these movies here. Because if they can do this if they can make another successful trilogy out of this, I mean, Spider-Man is untouchable right now. I was saying it in my review yesterday, like, Spider-Man, Tom Holland's Spider-Man kind of is sort of the Daniel Craig James Bond for the MCU. Like, he's a franchise where, you know, people keep coming back because they have done a good job of giving this character depth, maturing the character as the series goes on. Also, kind of like how the Harry Potter films started, from being little kids films to more adult-based films as they've gone along. I mean, it's amazing to see what they've done, and it really is. It's going to be interesting to see how that will continue on here. Now, do I think he's going to show up in the Avengers, Spider-Man? I think at some point, probably more likely in Secret Wars rather than in Doomsday in particular, just because I think there's just so much going on in Doomsday right now with the cast involved here. I would not be shocked at all if Secret Wars is the one where you see Spider-Man and some of the other superheroes in the MCU at this point, but that's just my personal opinion on that one in particular. But yeah, not much more to really say about it, except yeah, it's a good day for it's a good weekend for Spider-Man in general, and it's going to be good for a couple of weeks now. There's no real stiff competition coming out in the next couple of weeks to really combat it. Next week we've got a couple of new releases, and One Night Only, the film with Monica Barbera and Callum Turner, which is basically like The Purge, except instead of going out and killing people one night of the year, everyone gets to have sex for one night of the year. And it's just, you know, it's a fun concept, I think. I think it could be really good. I'm actually looking forward to seeing it overall. That, and also Super Troopers 3. Pretty sure that's not going to do incredible business overall, but it should be enough to do business that, I mean, it could be slightly successful. I mean, the last movie they did, Super Troopers 2, was actually one of those big surprises that I actually found really enjoyable. I actually thought that was actually one of the better sequels out there from a comedy that came out well than 10 years after the last film. But yeah, next weekend, those are the only 2 big new releases that are going to try to compete with Spider-Man. I don't think Eli Roth's Ice Cream Man's going to do a whole lot in a wide release. And then after that, there's not really a whole lot there. I mean, you got The End of Oak Street on August 14th, which could be a very successful film. So could Paw Patrol the Dino movie for the kids out there. If you need a kids film. Then you got Insidious on August 21st, the new Insidious movie. And then, of course, on August 28th, you got Coyote vs. Acme and The Dog Stars, the new Ridley Scott movie. So there's nothing there that could really combat it overall for a little bit. In fact, I don't think nothing's really opening on Labor Day weekend either. So this thing has got time to make a shit ton of money overall, and I would not be shocked at all if it does that and then some, man. So there you go. That's the weekend box office. So let's go ahead and get to some of the few news stories we have this week here, and we'll start off with Paramount and Warner Bros. Not with the merger news, because that's we're kind of just in this. The only big thing news that came out of that was that, you know, Paramount wants a quicker court trial to start in November, and the WGA wants it to be in April. So, yeah, I think we all know why they want that to move fast and furious. But that's not what we're going to talk about here. We're going to talk about something we touched on last week with the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, as we have an update on 2 different versions of this movie in particular, and only one of them is going to move forward. Actually, this was from a couple of weeks ago, but it's recent news overall. But as we all know, that a new Nightmare on Elm Street movie is in development, with Paramount getting the rights to produce a new movie. However, the Warner Brothers Paramount merger might actually play a part of which film is going to come out, because this is from Bleeding Cool News, saying that a report late Thursday night from Puck News said that not only is Paramount trying to get a new film off the ground, but Warner Brothers is also developing a project. The Paramount project was revealed a few days ago and is reportedly based on the original script by Wes Craven. Now the Warner Brothers picture project has been detailed, with Lee Cronin attached to direct. Lee Cronin, of course, is the man who just directed The Mummy, and he also did the Evil Dead Rise that came out about 3 years ago. Warner Brothers holds the international rights to Nightmare on Elm Street and would like to release the film internationally, with Paramount handling domestic distribution. Further complicating matters is Paramount's deal to buy Warner Brothers. Surely, if that goes through, only one of these films will be made, but which one? From the Puck News reporting, sources with knowledge on the matter that think Paramount figured that by the time the movie got underway, the Warner-Mount deal would have closed and Warner's would be compelled to release the Paramount version overseas. But Warner's Michael DeLuca and Pamela Abdy didn't care for that plan. Now they're looking to make their own movie, which they can only distribute overseas, and are in talks with Lee Cronin to produce, write, and direct. So yeah, you have a choice between a Nightmare on Elm Street movie directed by one of the coolest horror directors out there right now, who just did a really good Mummy movie and reinvigorated the Evil Dead franchise, or you could just redo the original Nightmare on Elm Street as a shot-for-shot remake because you got the okay from the Wes Craven estate. Now, which plan sounds like the more sensible one here? Obviously, the Paramount plan, no, of course not. The Warner Brothers plan sounds more awesome than the actual one, because it's just like, you already tried to remake the original Nightmare on Elm Street with a Jackie Earle Haley remake, and that was terrible. So, yeah, this whole thing is basically going to depend on whether or not, A, the deal gets done with Paramount and Warner Brothers, and if it doesn't work, then Warner Brothers can be free to do whatever they want to. But the interesting aspect about this is that Paramount has the U.S. rights, so Paramount could release their own version of A Nightmare on Elm Street here in the States, and then Warner Brothers would eventually release an international version with Lee Cronin's film in general here. So you kind of have sort of a similar situation to what happened back in the 1980s with James Bond. 1983 to be exact, because there was 2 different James Bond movies that came out in 1983, I should say, and one of them was Octopussy. That was the one that's part of the James Bond canon. It was the 6th one to feature Roger Moore in it, and produced by the Bond people in general. But there was also another James Bond movie released that same year in Never Say Never Again. Now, this was made because the producers had the original film rights for the book that was based off of, Thunderbolt. And so they brought Sean Connery back for that movie in particular, and that movie got made overall. And he had the producer of this, Kevin McClory, had held the filming rights of the novel for a long legal battle dating from the 1960s, and finally got it made in 1983. And although it made less than the Octopussy movie that came out, Never Say Never Again did pretty well overall. It did get some positive reviews and opened up to a pretty good box office in general. It actually, I think, made more money than... I'm looking here right now. It was close. Octopussy made $187 million worldwide. Never Say Never Again made $160 million. So either way, both studios won. And yeah, it's very interesting that we could have another situation like this in general here. We could have 2 Nightmare on Elm Street movies getting released for specific audiences. So we may get the crappy Paramount version here, but overseas they'll get probably the much better movie from Warner Brothers. But needless to say, I think we all want Warner Brothers to win this battle in general here in winning the rights to remake Nightmare on Elm Street with Lee Cronin. I just don't think doing it with Paramount, just doing a shot-for-shot remake, is going to work out in the end. I mean, did you see what they did to Psycho back in 1998? Yeah, that's why I think they should avoid the Paramount one, but that's not my decision to do. That's the studio's. But so yeah, that was one of the bigger news stories of the week. So let's go ahead and take a look at another story here. So yeah, Zendaya's been having a pretty good summer overall. She's had a couple big hits with the drama with Robert Pattinson from A24, and of course she's in 2 of the biggest blockbusters of the year, The Odyssey and also Spider-Man Brand New Day. But there's another woman out there who's having a pretty good summer in terms of movies she's been involved in. And that is Olivia Wilde. Olivia Wilde is in a couple of big movies right now. The Invite was a critical and commercial success, and then just this weekend she starred in the comedy I Want Your Sex from Greg Aoki. And I bring this up because she's in the news again this weekend because she's got a new movie in the works that's coming out next year. So this comes from Deadline Hollywood, and it says, after reinventing the dinner pick party with The Invite, Olivia Wilde is looking to get into the holiday spirit for her next directorial outing. Sources tell Deadline that Universal Pictures has greenlit her holiday comedy Naughty and tapped Jennifer Aniston and Peter Dinklage to star. The studio also dated the pick for November 5th, 2027. Lucky Chap is producing. Naughty follows Mallory, played by Jennifer Aniston, whose only hope of securing custody of her son from her gaslighting trashbag ex is to find Santa Claus, Peter Dinklage, and convince him to testify at her divorce hearing. Now, what's funny is that when I first read this story, I thought for some reason Jennifer Aniston was going to court because she thinks her son is the son of Santa Claus, and I thought when reading this at first, I thought to myself, this sounds pretty weird, but it could be really funny too. But no, it wasn't that at all. I think that's the better movie, honestly. But it's still fun. It's still a fun idea overall, especially having Peter Dinklage as Santa Claus. I'm really thinking to myself, how are they going to play this up here? Are they going to make him actually look like the Santa Claus, or is he going to be like one of those Santas you see on the streets or in the mall? He's kind of a scumbag in his own rights. But I don't know. I don't know. It sounds like it could go either way, but I don't know which way it's going to go, but I think it could be funny overall. The film feels like a perfect follow-up project for Wilde, who just showcased her skills as a comedy director with The Invite, one of the best-reviewed films of the year. Jimmy Warden penned the script, which originated from his original spec that Universal landed in 2023 with Wilde on board to direct. Although Wilde would go on to direct The Invite first while Warden fine-tuned the script, she's always had Aniston and Dinklage in mind to star as Mallory and Santa. Following the success of The Invite, the studio knew it had to move fast to make sure it didn't lose Wilde to another project, and worked out Aniston and Dinklage's schedule during the past weeks while getting in front of a greenlight board that signed off and set it for November 2027. Lucky Chap will produce along with Wilde and Warden. EVP Production Development Scarra Scott and Director of Production Development Jacqueline Guerrero will oversee the production for the studio. The Invite had highest film sales out of Sundance this year, acquired by A24 after an all-night bidding war. The film has had the best platform release of the year, reinforcing the urgency for theatrical comedy. So far, it has made $20 million domestically and $16 million internationally, while most European markets yet to release. The film has a critic rating of 97% on Rotten Tomatoes, one of the highest of the year, with 90% of people in exit polls recommended seeing it in the theater as an experience versus at home. While she has spent a lot of her time recently earning Emmy nominations for a critically acclaimed role in the Apple drama series The Morning Show, Aniston is no stranger to making audiences laugh for the last couple of decades, going back to her Emmy-winning role on Friends. She's then had her hit comedies, including We're the Millers, The Breakup, and the murder mystery movies, and the film feels like a return to form. The final season of The Morning Show was just announced by Apple. The Emmy-winning Dinklage recently produced and starred in the films American Dream with The Thicket and Brothers through his production company, Astoria Films. He was also part of the SAG-nominated ensemble for the smash hit Wicked. Upcoming films Idiots and Wicker, which both premiered at the Sundance Film Festival, will be released in the summer and fall respectively. On the TV side, he has recently been on the new season of the popular series Dexter Resurrection and The Lowdown, and was just added to the cast of Noah Hawley's Alien Earth for the upcoming second season. So yeah, this is a pretty interesting idea overall, and you got a lot of good people involved in it, and they don't talk about it in this particular article, but the thing that makes me excited about Olivia Wilde directing this is that I always go back to what she did with Booksmart, a really good, underrated movie. Came out in the crux of the summer movie season on Memorial Day weekend, got destroyed, got lost in the shuffle of films like Godzilla, King of the Monsters, Aladdin, what was another one? There was a couple of other movies that came out around that time. Obviously, Avengers Endgame was one of the big things, but I really think that movie could have done a whole lot better if they opened in the same time frame as Superbad, like in late August instead of late May. Just what a bad decision that was. It's a great movie, by the way. If you haven't seen Booksmart, Beanie Feldstein, Caitlin Dever, also features Jessica Williams and who is Carrie Fisher's daughter. I should have the name. I don't want to have to look it up, but I think I'm gonna have to. Because I know it's not Zoe Deutsch, because that's Leah Thompson's daughter. Billy Lord, that's who it was. Billy Lord. But yeah, she was really good in that movie. I really liked her a lot in that, and yeah, it's a great movie. If you haven't seen it, see it. Booksmart is really good. But yeah, that's what got me excited about this movie in all honesty. So I'm looking forward to seeing what she does with this overall. I haven't seen The Invite yet, but I'm dying to see it, man. I heard it's really good. So let's go ahead and move on to our next story. We're going to head into the world of sports for a little bit here. So things were looking good for Tony Romo after his years with the Dallas Cowboys. Turned out to be a really good play caller on CBS for a number of years, and then kind of faded down. Kind of lost a little bit of what made him so great early on, and things. But hey, he still had a job until this week apparently, which things are not looking good for Tony Romo, because if you haven't been listening to this, you haven't been following the news this week, Tony Romo has been placed on leave from his role as the lead analyst on CBS's news coverage following his arrest last week on suspension of operating a vehicle while under the influence. CBS Sports announced Friday that the former Dallas Cowboys quarterback was on leave until further notice, which probably means he's probably gone. J.J. Watt will join Jim Nantz and Tracy Wolfson as CBS Sports' lead NFL team during Romo's absence. Romo, 46, was arrested July 23rd after he was stopped while driving south of Interstate 43 in Wisconsin. According to the Milwaukee County Sheriff's Office report, Romo performed poorly on field sobriety tests before getting taken into custody, booked, and arrested. He has a court date set for September 21st. CBS Sports' announcement comes after citations released by the Milwaukee County Sheriff's Office indicated an open bottle of an alcoholic beverage was found on the passenger side of Romo's black Jeep during an inventory before it was towed. According to the citations, police stopped Romo after he was seen passing cars in the Gore area, which separates interstate traffic from cars entering on an on-ramp. Police said Romo questioned what a Gore area was during the stop. And I'd be doing that too, because I've never heard of a Gore area before, but there you go. Separates interstate traffic from cars entering from an on-ramp, so there you go. Body camera footage released this week earlier showed that Romo telling the deputies he had been coming from a golf course and was on his way to visit Grandma and Grandpa when he was stopped. A deputy told Romo he suspected him of being impaired because he had red glassy eyes and an odor of an intoxicating alcoholic beverage. So, here's the thing about this whole thing. Like, I get it. Tony Romo obviously should not be driving while drunk. I mean, that's something where, I could see CBS maybe suspending him for a little bit here, but the fact that they put him on a leave of absence now, with the NFL season just on the way, and the fact that his court date's going to be on September 21st, I really do. Something is fishy with this whole thing. I feel like this is a situation where CBS could have just, told him to stay off the air for a little bit and then have him come back later on. But it just feels like they're going to fire him at this point, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense, because something must have happened with CBS to cause them to put him on suspension. Besides this, I mean, it just feels really odd to be taken off the air simply because of driving while intoxicated. I mean, how many other celebrities out there have had this happen to them and they get off scot-free, and yet Tony Romo's the one guy that doesn't get it here, that doesn't get the break, and he gets taken off the air for a little bit, potentially fired at this point. Like, it just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. I mean, like I said, I get it. You can't drive while you're drunk. That's something that should be pretty obvious. And it's coming from somebody that doesn't really drive a whole lot, but you get the idea. Like, the whole thing, like, something just doesn't smell right here. I don't know if Romo said something to CBS that probably peeved him off, and about me, I don't know, with the way CBS is being run nowadays. I mean, if that could be a possibility, but. Yeah, just something seemed off about this whole thing in particular here. So I don't know. Just something about this just doesn't feel right. That the fact that they took him off of here so quickly afterwards. But I don't know. That's just my thinking behind it overall. But truth be told, Romo started out strongly in his first couple of years as a commentator for CBS, but then just afterwards, it just felt like he was kind of fading off of what made him so special in the first place. I don't know if it was just because CBS was the one that was telling him to tone it down a little bit here, but I don't know. Like, the whole thing just seems really odd to me. I agree that he should face punishment for driving while intoxicated, maybe be suspended, maybe be arrested, possibly, but I mean, to be in a situation where you're literally on the cusp of losing your job because of this, I don't know, something else. They're hiding something from this whole thing, I think so. But we'll get to more in the sports world, because there was definitely some other stories we're talking about. But let's head back into the world of movies, because Marvel is making some headlines, both good and bad, this week. So this is going to be interesting to talk about, because I'd like to think that most of my viewers out there have already seen Spider-Man Brand New Day, but if you haven't, I'll try my best to try to keep this as spoiler spoiler free as I can here, but there is one pivotal point of the new Spider-Man movie that should be mentioned here, that not really relating to any character, shape, or form, but if you watch the marketing, you kind of figure out the direction I'm going here. But we already know that Marvel is working on an X-Men movie. We already know that they had already talked about it for a couple of months, for the past year now. They got the director of Thunderbolts bringing it on board here, and more than likely we're going to hear some news on it with D23 coming up in a couple of weeks. But that's not stopping the news from coming out a little bit early, as Deadline Hollywood was the first to break that Marvel Studios seems to be getting closer to forming its team of mutants, with Samara Weaving being chosen to play Emma Frost in the upcoming X-Men movie. After meeting with a number of candidates, director Jake Schreier and Marvel Studio President Kevin Feige landed on Weaving earlier this week to tackle the role, and Marvel had no comment on the casting. While James Bond has had everyone's attention this summer, which actually, it's kind of interesting we haven't heard a whole lot about James Bond for a couple of weeks now, which probably means we're probably going to hear something sooner rather than later. But the most active casting process has been who will play the new team of mutants, while Schreier and Marvel's executives have been meeting and auditioning actors for a number of roles, with the Frost character appearing to elicit the most thorough search among the new cast. The final list of actors tested for the role right after July 4th. At the end of the day, Weaving's audition was too hard to beat. Frost is a telepathic mutant who's first showed up in X-Men comics in the 1980s and has evolved over the years, going from supervillain to a key member of the X-Men. On the film side, she was most recently played by January Jones in 2011's X-Men First Class. Not very well in this humble person's opinion. I really didn't like her. I really didn't like that portrayal of Emma Frost in that movie. January Jones is a great actress, but that role in particular in that movie just really felt like, when you watch her, it felt like she had to be the center of attention on screen. Every time she was on screen, forget what else was going on. No, I have to be the center of attention here. I don't know. It just didn't work for me in that movie in particular. But anyway, back to the story. This latest development is sure to excite fans of the franchise who have been begging for a new X-Men movie since Disney's acquisition of 20th Century Fox and its library in 2019. The X-Men universe was by far the most popular and most profitable Marvel IP that Fox controlled, counting 7 films and a successful Wolverine spin-off franchise that produced 3 more. The new project gained momentum last spring when Schreier was tapped to direct, followed by Beef creator Lee Sung-jin and The Bear co-creator Joanna Callow hired to print the script. Weaving already is having a big 2026. In March, she led Ready or Not 2, Here I Come, the sequel to the 2019 hit horror comedy Ready or Not, which saw her step back into the role of fierce protagonist Grace McCauley. The sequel achieved an audience approval rating of 90%, a rare feat for a horror thriller genre film, and grossed 3 times its production budget within a single day of its May 5th digital release, climbing to the #1 spot on Hulu and ranked high globally on Disney+. She followed with IFC's Over Your Dead Body, winner of a South by Southwest Audience Award, which she's co-led opposite Jason Segel. But the big story, of course, is the X-Men movie, and we already have another casting sort of confirmed if you just saw recent films. But there's also been some other names that have been tossed around there. One of the big names that was thrown in possibly for a role that's already set up is Indy Navarrete from Obsession. She reportedly is looking like she's going to be Mystique in this movie coming up here, as she met recently with Marvel. And there was a couple of other casting names out there potentially for the role. Like you have people like Kaylee Spaney or Odessa Anzioni from I Love LA up for the role of Rogue. And also I think I saw Adam Driver's possibly up for Dr. Sinister as well. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of excitement going forward here. I think Marvel already has the cast pretty much set up, and they're just waiting for the D23 presentation coming up next Saturday. Not the Saturday coming up, the next Saturday, Saturday the 15th, because of course the D23 event will be the weekend of August 14th. So, but yeah, so that's the latest we have on the X-Men news. So let's go ahead and follow. So we had some good X-Men news, and now let's get to some bad X-Men news. A couple of bad X-Men news, a couple of bad Marvel news, I should say. And that is the shocking cancellation of Wonder Man, which was renewed for its 2nd season back in May. And then Disney, 2 months later, basically said, "Fooled you." Actually, the renewal was in March, but still. Wonder Man has been canceled at Disney+. The news comes despite the fact that Disney announced the Season 2 renewal for the show back in March, roughly 2 months after its debut. According to the sources, a writer's room for Season 2 was never opened, and the show's writers have been released to pursue other projects. Yahya Abdul-Mateen II and Ben Kingsley starred in the series as Simon Weems and Trevor Slattery, respectively. The Season 1 cast also included X Mayo, Dimitrios Grosse, Zlatko Biric, Ariana Moayed, and Olivia Thirlby. It was created by Destin Daniel Cretton and Andrew Guest, with Cretton also directing the first 2 episodes. Guest served as the showrunner. Wonder Man debuted to strong critical acclaim upon its premiere, with the first season holding a 91% critical approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes. Abdul-Mateen earned an Emmy nomination for his outstanding lead actor in a comedy series for his work on the show, making him the only live-action actor to get an Emmy nod for both a Marvel and a DC project, following his win for his work on HBO's Watchmen. Disney did not release any viewership data for the show, though it did make a single appearance in the Nielsen streaming top 10 charts the week of its release. The show managed to crack the number 8 position on the streaming top 10 originals chart for the week of January 26th to February 1st, but fell off the chart the following week. According to an individual with knowledge of the situation, while Wonder Man is not proceeding with Season 2, the character featured in the series could still appear in other Marvel projects in the future, which automatically leads you to wonder, are they going to announce a Wonder Man movie at D23? I'm thinking that they're going to do that, because why would you cancel a show like this, one of your more popular shows on Disney Plus, with a director who just directed the second biggest, highest grossing movie opening weekend film of all time? I mean, that does not make a whole lot of sense, but it does lead to possibly a future for the MCU in terms of the Disney Plus shows, because, as this next paragraph will say, the renewal for Wonder Man was an anomaly for Marvel, as virtually all the live-action shows that have launched on Disney Plus have been single seasons. Those have included WandaVision, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Hawkeye, and Moon Knight. Loki, starring Tom Hiddleston, did air for 2 seasons, while the WandaVision spin-off Vision Quest is currently in the works. WandaVision also spun the spin-off Agatha All Along, starring Kathryn Hahn. Disney Plus also relaunched the Marvel Netflix series Daredevil under the title Daredevil Born Again, with a 2nd season premiering this year and a 3rd season slated to debut in 2027. So that's interesting to think about here. And what's been the biggest complaint that a lot of people have had recently with the MCU movies as post-COVID? Most of it is because you have to have watched the TV series to understand what's going on, and the TV shows on Disney Plus, because there are characters that show up in the movies that are basically characters that people who have not been watching those shows, or people who are just watching the movies, are not going to figure out right away that these are specific people from specific shows in general. Even in this last movie with Spider-Man Brand New Day, there's characters from Daredevil Born Again, from Daredevil, the mayor in Daredevil is in the new movie, and then there's a couple of other people in other films. Of course, the big one was Matt Murdock being in Daredevil as Daredevil in No Way Home. So I think they're finally getting the hint that maybe, just maybe, they should tone down the TV series and put the focus more on the movies. I think that's why more recently Kevin Feige's been putting more of a focus on quality over quantity overall. And I think that was their biggest mistake overall, by just letting them continue to have all these movies coming out one after another. And on top of that, you have to watch these TV shows to figure out what the hell's going on too. So, yeah, in that way, I can see that's the direction they're going with here. So, I mean, I think it could work out in the long run here, But anyway, that is not the only bad news that Marvel came to this week, because we finally got the news that was pretty much confirmed a long time ago, but yeah, it's pretty much confirmed now that this isn't happening. And that is, of course, that the Blade movie is no longer happening. And Kevin Feige pretty much confirmed it a couple weeks ago by saying that his biggest regret was not getting that Blade movie moving forward quicker. But Mahershala Ali came out this week as he's promoting a new movie with the director that would have been the director for Blade, Bassam Tariq, Your Mother, which comes out this fall. And Variety had a story about this with Mahershala Ali talking about this whole thing. But as most Marvel fans know by now, Mahershala Ali was announced to star in a Blade movie during a flashy surprise Comic-Con appearance in 2019. But the movie didn't get made. The 2-time Oscar winner never appeared in live action as the popular vampire-hunting anti-hero, despite Marvel Studios hiring director Bassam Tariq and later Yann Diamage to helm the film. Although you did hear him briefly in the end of Eternals, but who the hell is watching the Eternals again to really check that? But now, after production stall out, Ali and Tariq have teamed up in the wake of the failed Marvel movie to make this fall's Amazon MGM action film Your Mother. If the actor and director hadn't been brought together for Blade, their new movie wouldn't have been made. Ali told GQ, "When I look at this in Blade, I couldn't have done both, and the reason this even exists is because that project fell apart, and Bassam had the time, space, energy, and focus to go and write this and then reapproach me. And I was able to use those skills that I've been working on for over a year training for Blade in the way I feel creatively redeemed on some level, just in my own journey between me, myself, and I." Marvel Studio chief Kevin Feige, who announced Ali's casting as Blade at Comic-Con several years ago, recently spoke openly about his personal disappointment as the movie not getting made. Feige said on the Happy Sad Confused podcast last week, "I am feeling like a gigantic loser and failure that we didn't get this off the ground with Mahershala. We didn't want to simply just put a leather outfit on him and we'll have him start killing vampires. It had to be unique. It fell into the time that we started pulling back and saying only except insanely great, and it wasn't insanely great at the time. We didn't feel like, as we often do, you can have a good script and make a great script to production. We didn't feel confident that we could do..." See, these pop-ups here just keep popping up on here in Variety. Stop! "We didn't feel confident that we could do that on Blade, and we didn't want to do that to Mahershala and didn't want to do that on us. Ultimately, Ali is happy that he's starring in Your Mother, Your Mother, Your Mother instead of Blade. What I look at what is for me it is what either this or that, and I'll take this. No offense to them, I've been doing this professionally for pushing 30 years now, and one thing I've learned is that what is for you, and what is not. For whatever reason, the project is not for me. If they wanted to do it, we would have done it. So I had to move on. I had moved on." He said, "Again, you had me under contract. They had billions of dollars. If they wanted to do the movie, we would have done the movie. So we're not doing the movie." And that's a good point, man. I mean, you can make the argument that COVID really kind of ruined the chances of Blade coming, but it didn't stop a lot of other movies coming out around that time that Marvel had announced before then. So I really do get the sense possibly that there was never real intentions on getting the Blade movie out there. After some of the other Marvel movies were taking a long time to get released, and the ones that came out weren't always doing the biggest business in general. I mean, I don't know. Like, it's just like it would have been cool to see a new Blade, but I think that ship has sailed at this point. It's like I've said before with a lot of other things. Like, after a certain point, you just got to move on here. But it'll be very curious to see what he does with that new movie, Your Mother, Your Mother, Your Mother. But yeah, it really sucks that that Blade's probably never going to get the proper film treatment from the MCU that it should have. I also think Marvel, was just a little this was back when that was first announced. Marvel really hadn't really decided if they were going to do if they were ever going to do an R-rated comic book movie. Keep in mind, it took them years after Deadpool 2 to be convinced that they can make an R-rated movie in the MCU with Deadpool and Wolverine and make it work, and that became the big box office hit that it was. I mean, remember when Deadpool 2 came out? Fox actually made a PG-13 cut of Deadpool 2 to see what Disney would, because I think they wanted to see what Disney would think if they released a PG-13 Deadpool movie with Once Upon a Deadpool. And it wasn't the greatest. It certainly definitely felt like a movie where, like, I don't think it would have worked if they'd gone strictly with the PG-13 thing. It took them a couple years to be convinced that they should do what they did with Deadpool and Wolverine. But I will say this though: Deadpool and Wolverine did predict one thing correctly, and that was simply this.
Where did you get that little beauty?
That's Punisher's AT4.
Which Punisher? There's been like 5 of them.
There's only been one Blade. There's only ever going to be one Blade.
That is, of course, Wesley Snipes as the one and only Blade, and The Simpsons already predicted stuff, but hey, MCU called it a couple years ago, but it's now official, so... honestly, at this point, they should just go ahead and get Wesley Snipes to do another Blade movie. I mean, if he was more than willing to come back for that, I wouldn't mind seeing him do another one of those movies, honestly. But I don't know. That's just my personal opinion on that front there. But anyway, so that's the latest from the MCU. Kind of a mixed bag week overall. Some positive stuff from Marvel, with Spider-Man Brand New Day coming out, and the news about the X-Men movie, and not so great news with Wonder Woman and Mahershala Ali confirming the Blade movie isn't happening. So a yin and yang week for Marvel, pretty much. So let's go ahead and delve back into the world of sports, because LeBron James, he's a 76er now, but it's not just going to be a 76ers run that's going to end his career. No. He wants to be so hard to be the next Michael Jordan that he's even going to try to do what Michael Jordan did in his last few years with the Chicago Bulls. Okay, so before I get to the story, there has been an update to the story from a couple of days ago, shortly after the story came out. I think it was actually the day after the story broke, but I'll talk about the original story at first here. And it says here that this is from Thursday. It says that this season could be LeBron James' last dance in the NBA. Shortly after signing with the Philadelphia 76ers, James is reportedly in talks to launch a Last Dance-style documentary series, according to The Athletic. Negotiations between James and ESPN are at the 1-yard line per The Athletic. The financial details of a possible agreement are not known at this time. Both ESPN and a representative for James declined comment while reached by The Athletic. If the deal reaches the finish line, a camera crew will follow James around during his next season with the 76ers. The documentary will also reportedly pull footage from the totality of James's career. Since he was a phenom in high school, there should be plenty of clips to pull from, including some that have never been released publicly before, according to The Athletic. Now, here's the part that baffles me about this whole thing. There is, however, some uncertainty of when the documentary would air. While James said that the 76ers was his last decision, the 41-year-old signed a 2-year deal with his new franchise. It's unclear if James will play both years with the 76ers or if he intends to retire after the 2026-27 NBA season. It would be an easy decision to make, as James has a player option at the end of the year. So, right off the bat, they're doing this before they even know if LeBron James is retiring next year. Like, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense whatsoever. Now, here's the other part of the story that just came out a couple of days later. So this comes from Awful Announcing, and it says here that Maverick Carter insists LeBron James isn't doing his own Last Dance doc. This is my first time reading this, because I hadn't heard about this update from Maverick Carter, who's worked with LeBron James on other projects. But LeBron James made the biggest splash of the NBA summer when he announced that he would be taking his talents to Broad Street and joining the Philadelphia 76ers for what was all but assuredly the final stop of his historic career. The narrative potential in Philly is rich. Can LeBron and his championship experience help a talented group that has always fallen short in the postseason finally make a run back to championship glory for the first time in more than 4 decades? How will a team with 4 All-Stars in the starting 5 manage to share the ball? Can Fanatics pick enough new LeBron jerseys to keep up with the demand of the Philadelphia market? Given all the excitement around the team, it came as no surprise that shortly after James' decision was made clear, reports came out that he was planning a documentary akin to Michael Jordan in The Last Dance to follow his final season in the NBA. Insider Mark Stein noted that the money from a documentary could make up the difference in James' pay now that he's playing for one of the cheapest contracts in the league. Andrew Marchand of The Athletic furthered that reporting, with sources telling him that a deal between James and ESPN on the doc was at the 1-yard line. But despite the noise, longtime LeBron business partner Maverick Carter insists that James is not doing his own version of The Last Dance. It's followed up by a tweet here that says, "Simply, we are not doing anything like The Last Dance. LeBron doesn't even know when his last season is." James retweeted the post from his own account. By the sound of it, Carter seemed more miffed by the direct comparisons to The Last Dance rather than the implications that James and co. are planning a documentary in general. The desire to delineate between the two projects is understandable. James and Carter don't want the narrative to be that their camp is simply doing the same thing that Jordan did. At the same time, if one of the NBA's GOATs have a camera crew around through the final seasons of their career to document the journey, the comparison is inevitable. Carter said LeBron doesn't even know when his last season is, but that is hardly relevant. The longer LeBron decides to play, the more material film crew has to work with. James's agent Rich Paul teased that people believing that this was the final hurrah of the career of the NBA all-time leading scorer may be in for a surprise. "I think Philadelphia is going to energize him," Paul told ESPN's Dave McMenamin after James' move became official. "Maybe we get 2 seasons, maybe we get 4. Energy will undoubtedly be a factor in how long James spends in Philly before retiring. Another factor may be how long it takes to find the right ending to his own documentary." So, yeah. They basically shut down the rumors of a LeBron James Last Dance-esque documentary, which, again, doesn't make a whole lot of sense because he just signed the contract to join the 76ers on a 2-year deal. If it was a 1-year deal, maybe you could make the idea that they're going to do this, but, like, if anything, somebody like Aaron Rodgers, who just announced this year he's going to retire from the Steelers and retire from the NFL after this year, that's somebody that if they want to do, like, a Last Dance documentary with him, that makes more sense, which the Steelers will never let him do that. But then again, maybe this new regime will let him do that. But also, I just want to say this again, because I've said it before and I'll say it again. Can we please stop trying to recreate The Last Dance already? I mean, Jesus Christ. I mean, it gets on my nerves, man, because every time somebody does, there's like a big deal where, like, the Green Bay Packers, when they re-signed Aaron Rodgers and to a new deal, they made it, and they got and they got some of his old buddies back, and everyone was making a big deal about, oh, it's the last dance for Aaron Rodgers. Just like, just because the last dance is a popular thing that happened around COVID, you can't just keep adding that to anything going on out there. I mean, it's just like, it's like whenever a new buzzy word or trend goes out there, people are already waiting to make it the hot new trendy word. Like, Barbenheimer, when that came out, everyone that was a one-time thing where you had Barbie and Oppenheimer coming out on the same day, becoming the big successes that they were. By the way, we'll get to Barbie a little bit later on here because they were in the news this week. But then everyone else tried to do the same thing. Everyone tried to make Moana 2 and Gladiator 2 the next big box office theater thing overall. And you just can't do that with every new weekend that comes around when there's two big blockbusters opening up here. Like, yeah, you could do that with Dune, with Avengers and Dune coming out on the same day this weekend, this Christmas, but I mean, that's more rarity than that makes more sense than just doing it with a Disney sequel and a Ridley Scott sequel that nobody was asking for. Like, I mean, it just makes no sense. It's like with the Me Too movement, honestly. Like, I'm going to go off topic here, but this is actually something I wanted to cover for the opening monologue, but I felt like I didn't have enough material to really emphasize why I should talk about it as part of the opening bit here. But the Me Too movement is also one of those type of buzzy things where the original intentions of the Me Too movement were perfectly sound. They were perfectly... They did what they had to do to get rid of scumbags who were sexually harassing people, treating people like shit overall, and like, it's just, I mean, it was just something where it's just like, yeah, early on, yes, that was something that makes a lot of sense, but then once Hollywood decided, the Me Too movement is pretty big right now. You know what we should do with this? Whore it out and make it a buzzy new Hollywood trend. Because they started making movies and TV shows about the Me Too movement. There's a lot of them were not great. A lot of them were not really good at all. And because of that, and because the time had passed, like, the people who basically got, like, canceled because of the Me Too movement, the people who got caught on later on basically just got a slap on the wrist and said, now don't you do that again, and then just immediately went back to work. Like, it's just kind of like, I mean, it just really does not. It was something where it lost a lot of its. The Me Too movement lost a lot of what made it so important to people. Once the world decided, no, we got to make this a buzzy word now, and it's word now, Me Too or cancel, that type of stuff. I mean, it's just I don't know. Like, to me, that's always been something that's been really bugging me overall, and it's kind of like with the Last Dance thing in particular. Like, the Last Dance works. Work because that was literally what the thing they were doing back in the 1997 season. The Last Dance was what it was called. Just because The Last Dance was the hot topic for that time period in 2020, that doesn't mean we have to add it to every single time somebody is going to retire or somebody's going to leave or do something else. Just like, it just doesn't work that way. None of this works the way you think it's going to be. So, yeah, I don't know. To me, it's just something where it's just kind of like this whole LeBron James Last Dance thing. It's just kind of like, I mean, just stop trying to do this type of thing already, please, for the love of God. But of course, they're not going to do it. They're going to keep doing it, and I'm going to keep bitching about it. So, but I'd rather be bitching about that than bitching about what's going on in Major League Baseball right now, because holy mother of God. Thank God I am not I do not like Major League Baseball a lot, because if I was a Major League Baseball fan and I just saw what the Dodgers did, I'd be pissed. So essentially, if you didn't hear the news, the Los Angeles Dodgers, trying to win their third straight World Series championship, basically becoming the Kansas City Chiefs of the end of Major League Baseball, agreed to a trade to acquire two-time AL Cy Young Award winner Tarik Skubal from the Detroit Tigers in a blockbuster trade. So they basically traded to get him, and they sent to the Detroit Tigers. Who'd they send? They sent a trio of prospects to Detroit. Two of them are ranked on MLB Pipeline's top 100 list. Outfielder Zaire Hope, who was number 25, and right-hander River Ryan, number 68. They also sent right-hander Brady Smith, who was LA's number 17 prospect, before the trade to round out the package. So yeah, once that news broke out, this was basically the MLB fans' reaction to the news in particular. And quite frankly, even someone like me who's not a Major League Baseball fan can't agree with this altogether.
What's the point anymore? Why do we even play? Why do we even fucking live on this planet? What is this garbage?
Yeah, because that's really what it is like. It's the rich getting richer. And honestly, I don't think the Dodgers are done just yet. I mean, look, I know the people in this town are going to kill me for saying this, but I'm sorry. The Pittsburgh Pirates have been so terrible for so long that I wouldn't put it past them to do this. I'm still fully convinced that somehow, some way, the Dodgers are going to try to get Paul Skeens. It may not be tomorrow when the deadline comes to an end, or by the time you listen to this, it'll be later today, because I think the deadline ends at 6 today. It probably won't be tomorrow, but it might be by the time next season rolls around, if there even is a next season, because yeah, a move like this will basically make people want to go, yeah, we want a salary cap in the MLB, and if you don't, we're not going to play next year, which now this is more likely going to happen, but yeah, Paul Skeens will probably be a Dodger before it's all said and done. I mean, that's just what it is right now, because the MLB does not really care about any of these teams outside of Los Angeles or New York, or even New York. Even though the Yankees have kind of lost their muster the last couple of years. The Mets had a good year a couple of years ago, but they're still terrible. I mean, who else is out there that's going to beat the Dodgers? Really, who else is going to beat them? Yeah, you can't answer that question overall. You could try to make an argument. Oh, what about the Milwaukee Brewers? They're the hottest team in the National League right now. It's just like, yeah, does it really matter? So were the Seattle Mariners last year, and look at how well they did. But yeah, the whole thing it just proves that the Major League Baseball desperately needs a salary cap, and because of this, I would be more than willing to be either two things are going to happen. One, because of what's going to happen with with the Dodgers and what they did, the 20% of the season is not going to happen at this point. I mean, you even have National League executives in the Major League Baseball world saying it's a sad day for a lot of us. So yeah, it's everyone's making the same case. The baseball is broken. The Dodgers are the reason there'll be a lockout and a salary cap system put in place. And yeah, that needs to happen. And you still got those people out there, these TV journalists who's so passionate about the Dodgers and all that. Yeah, you weren't passionate when they weren't winning. Like, it's just kind of like it's the same thing whenever the New York Knicks won the championship at the NBA Finals this year. Like, it was cool, but then once it happened, it was almost like ESPN was just sucking off the Knicks every single time that they were on. I mentioned a couple weeks ago at the ESPY Awards, like, when the Knicks won the Best Team of the Year award, they had freaking Fat Joe coming out singing, "Nothing Can Stop Me, I'm All the Way." It's just like, would they have done that if any other team had won the Best Team award? No. They knew the Knicks were going to win, and the ESPYs just basically became another excuse to just let them have another stage to themselves overall. It's just like you had the parade already. You proved your worth to everybody. Just like, now you're setting yourself up for colossal failure next year, because you probably won't be as good as you were this year. Like I said it a couple weeks ago, it's basically like watching the kids in school that are desperately trying to learn. They want to learn. They want to get out of high school and college, but the teachers aren't doing their job right, because they're either doing something else. They're talking on their cell phone, texting, smoking. They're probably probably talking to like the cheerleaders or the cool kids. The cheerleaders and the cool kids are the Los Angeles Dodgers to Major League Baseball right now. I mean, that's literally what it feels like right now. And the fact that Major League Baseball has done nothing about this, which really I don't know what they could do about it, but they're just setting up the inevitable here. They're going to win the World Series at this point here. And I know some of them are thinking like, well, you say that, but then there's going to be that one team that will shock them all. Just like, yeah, that's not happening. They're going to win the World Series, and I, for one, am going to be happy with that, because I'm sorry to tell you this, baseball is a boring ass sport, man. I mean, I don't care if it's America's pastime. America needs a new pastime, damn it. Because baseball is such a snooze fest. It's boring. It's lifeless. Nothing intriguing happens whatsoever. And there's always one team that's better than every other team in the leagues. I mean, it's just simple as that. Like, I don't know what else you could possibly say is America's pastime. Maybe the NFL at this point, since that makes more money than the Major League Baseball ever does. But, like, I don't know. Like, the only time I've ever been excited about baseball in recent years was when the Savannah Bananas came to town last year, which is about a year from that. Which was about a year ago, honestly. I can't believe it's already been a year since I saw them. But, yeah, that was more fun watching them play. But, I'm just not a baseball person overall. So when I saw this, it's kind of like, hey, that's good for me, because a sport I don't like is getting cucked even more. So, hey, that's what this is. You reap what you sow at this point. So anyway, let's get away from sports. Let's cover the last story we have for this week. And like I said before, it does involve Barbie. So yeah, you might have forgotten that we were supposed to get a Barbie sequel pretty soon. I mean, we probably should have gotten it this year. But, there has been a lot of snags, and everyone's been wondering what the heck's going on here. So, Hollywood Reporter gave us an update. This actually came from the New York Times, and it says that the Barbie sequel has hit a roadblock on its way back to Barbie Land. Warner Bros. Has until December to reach a deal with the stars of the 2023 film, Margot Robbie and Ryan Gosling, as well as director and co-writer Greta Gerwig, before the rights revert to Mattel, according to a report from the New York Times. The studio had been negotiating with the principal talents for months, offering them a share of the profits if the film reaches certain box office milestones. The outlet also claims that Warner Bros. CEO David Zaslav declined to approve the proposed deal because he believed it was, quote, too generous. What the fuck does that even mean? Like, I don't even know what that means in this case here, but, anyway, continuing on here. The Times went on to report that a Warner Bros. Spokesperson disputed that characterization, saying talent representatives declined an offer made in May and have not yet submitted the counter-offer. We have a rights deal with Mattel in place and have made a series of big offers to try to finalize deals to make the next Barbie movie. Studio co-chairs Pam Abdi and Michael DeLuca said in a statement. Unfortunately, we have been unable to reach an agreement thus far. The Hollywood Reporter reached out for Warner Bros. For comment, and they had nothing further to add. Gerwig and Barbie co-star and co-writer Noah Baumbach have had an idea for Barbie 2 for a couple of years. The Hollywood Reporter first reported in 2024 that the couple was in the early stages of developing the story for the sequel. Barbie was a massive hit with audiences and critics grossing $1.5 billion worldwide and earning 8 Academy Award nominations, winning one for Best Original Song, What Was I Made For, by Billie Eilish and Vanessa O'Connell. Upon its release in July 2023, the film also became a cultural phenomenon thanks to its marketing campaign, signature pink aesthetic, and simultaneous release with Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer, dubbing the name Barbenheimer. So yeah, basically Warner Brothers Warner Brothers and Margot Robbie, Ryan Gosling, and Greta Gerwig are kind of in a stalwart right now on whether or not we're actually going to get to see this movie. But we'll probably see this Barbie movie once it gets out of Warner Brothers' hands. I think a studio like, especially a studio like, Netflix, because Greta Gerwig's got the Narnia movie coming out for Netflix, but also Amazon Prime, MGM, because MGM and Mattel have a deal too, as they just put out Masters of the Universe, which this a couple months ago, which was a really good movie. So, if Warner Brothers doesn't decide to make this movie, I still think this does get made, but it will probably get made by another studio. I think Amazon or MGM, Netflix, maybe even Universal, because Universal is working on a Barbie Illumination movie, an animated film, which I think that's still very much in production right now, if I'm not mistaken. But they're still working on that. So there's still a lot of places where this Barbie movie could essentially land here. But, I mean, this movie in particular, I mean, if you're going to do the sequel, it should have been done already. It should be in some form of development at this point here. But I really don't feel like Warner Brothers is ever going to make it. I think if it ever gets made, it'll probably be at Universal. It'll probably be either at Netflix, MGM. I mean, it's too big of a property to really pass up on here. And I think Warner Brothers may have started the process of getting this together too little too late because of how the star powers for all three of them, Robbie, Gosling, and Gerwig, has evolved since that Barbie movie came out. I mean, they really should have had the blank check ready to go once the movie became the blockbuster hit that it was at this point. But honestly, I don't think it'll get made at Warner Brothers. If it does, it'll be a miracle, but I think it'll eventually get made at another studio. Like I said, either Universal, MGM, or Netflix. One of those places in particular. So there you go. That's what I have to say about those. So let's go ahead and move on to, let's go ahead and wrap up the show here with some recommendations for the week. And with this past week having a couple of titles, new releases with Mortal Kombat 2 and The Devil Wears Prada 2, it's another one of those weekends where it's mostly catching up on catalog titles and maybe getting some titles from recent weeks coming out here. But really, when the biggest new release is the Uwe Boll-directed Citizen Vigilante with Armie Hammer, it's not a very good weekend for new releases, but there are some interesting catalog titles coming out this week for the first time on 4K. You got American Pie 2 coming out on 4K for the first time. I guess because Focker-in-Law is coming out this November, Little Fockers is getting a 4K release. Yeah, because when I think of 4K, that's the movie I want to watch in 4K. The worst of the Meet the Parents movies. But there is a couple really good movies coming out on 4K for the first time, including the movie Safe from director Todd Haynes coming out on Criterion. The movie starred, of course, Julianne Moore, where she is a woman who she collapses one day, and her condition worsens when she finds out that she has this disease, and basically, like, she, it's triggered by sources from she gets like coughing fits, exhaustion, spontaneous nosebleeds, and it's triggered by sources as disparate as car exhaust, cologne, and the sun. And nobody really knows exactly what's going on with her, but it's a very intriguing movie, and one that's definitely worth checking out on 4K. So that'd be pretty cool to see that movie play on 4K in particular. But also, The People vs. Larry Flint, what was a really good movie that starred Woody Harrelson as Larry Flint. Larry Flint, of course, being the Penthouse creator, Penthouse magazine creator. And it was a movie about how his rise to power and how he became the unlikely champion of the First Amendment when he took the fight against the Reverend Jerry Falwell all the way to the Supreme Court. It was a movie that also featured an Oscar-nominated performance by Courtney Love. Woody Harrelson also got nominated as well. It's a really good movie, directed by Milos Forman, written by Scott Alexander and Larry Karaszewski, produced by Oliver Stone. A really good movie. One that's definitely worth checking out if you haven't seen it already. But yeah, like I said, not a whole lot in terms of new releases, just mostly catalog titles, but some good catalog titles overall. So, I will say that I'll do this though. I will say for one movie that you should not check out this week because I just watched it yesterday, Soulmate, the movie that Universal was putting out as the Megan spinoff, and they put it out, they dumped it out on digital on the weekend of Spider-Man Brand New Day's release, and once you see it. Yeah, it's pretty obvious why you should avoid Soulmate like the plague. This is one of the worst movies I have seen so far this year. I mean, this movie was really lame. I mean, the moment Obsession became the global phenomenon that it was, this thing was destined to fail, so no wonder they sent it to die on digital. I mean, they didn't even put it out on Peacock. They sent this out to digital. Like, they were so disappointed by how this turned out. Like, even if Obsession didn't come out, this film would still suck. Because not only is it a ripoff of Obsession, but it's mostly a ripoff of a far better movie that came out the year before, Companion. Which, unfortunately, wasn't the big hit that it should have been, but it was still a lot better than Soulmate was. I mean, this movie was just so lazy, so badly put together. I'm shocked they made a movie that was even worse than Megan 2.0. I mean, Megan 2.0 was bad, but this was worse. I mean, this thing was just a mess, man. So yeah, avoid Soulmate like the plague. That's my quick little review of that. So that's going to wrap this episode of the Reviewing Network Live up here. So like I said, Steel City Con Week is upon us. If you're out near the Western Pennsylvania area, down in Monroeville, at the Monroeville Convention Center this weekend, come check it out. We'll have a table up there. You should be able to see where our stuff is at. It's out in the main floor. But yeah, we'll be there this weekend, and then Sunday night next week. Assuming that there isn't a big ton of news like this week in particular. It will probably be a week where I'll just take a look at the weekend box office and then call it a night. Because, yeah, I'll be really tired by that point. But, anyway, we'll see what happens. Hopefully that will be the case. It probably won't, but we'll definitely see. But, with all that said, thank you so much for joining me on this episode of the Reviewing Network Live. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please go ahead and do me the honors of hitting the like button, subscribe button, notification button. Check out the last episode we did and check out some of the other episodes we've done as well. And with all that said, I will see you guys on next week's show. So thank you so much for watching this. I hope you enjoyed it. See you guys next time. Until then, we are out.